She had worn the uniform with pride, served her country overseas, led tactical missions under fire, but nothing could prepare her for what happened in her own driveway. No questions, no greeting, just yelling. Commands barked like she was invisible, like she didn't belong. It was a quiet Sunday in Modesto, California. Danielle Rucker was just getting home after a long day helping her cousin move. She was tired, dressed casually, combat boots, leggings, and a worn Fort Bragg hoodie. Her two partners, Rex and Nova, Belgian Malinois, highly trained and perfectly calm, rested in their crates in the back of her SUV. Her garage door was halfway up when she noticed a woman across the street watching her. Fit, late 50s maybe, holding a yoga mat and whispering into her phone. Danielle brushed it off, probably a new neighbor. But within minutes, sirens blared. 4 squad cars swarmed her cul-de-sac like a raid. One cut off her driveway, another blocked the street, doors flung open, guns drawn. "Step out of the vehicle!" someone shouted. Confused, Danielle cracked her window. "Excuse me?" "Hands where we can see them, now." She looked around. No threat in sight, except all the weapons aimed at her. One officer crept forward, another crouched behind a bush. "We got a report about a break-in," they said. "You match the description." Danielle kept her voice steady. "This is my house. I'm a veteran. My name's on the deed." But they weren't listening. From the back of the car, Rex gave a quiet bark. Danielle responded with a subtle tap on the console. A signal. The car doors unlocked. Then the tone shifted. Out stepped Rex, sleek and alert, scanning every movement like he was back on a mission. Nova followed, equally poised. Both wore tactical vests clearly marked. U.S. Military K9. Do not pet. They moved beside Danielle, forming a silent perimeter. Calm, controlled, unshaken. Danielle stepped out next, her posture easy but commanding. She didn't raise her voice. "My name is Danielle Rucker. I just got home. I served 12 years in the Army, 6 of them in Special Ops K9. These are my dogs." She reached into her pocket, slowly, and pulled out her veteran ID and driver's license. One officer finally stepped forward to take them, but by then the message was clear. She wasn't a threat. She was a soldier, and this was her home. Perez looked from her ID to her face, then to the dogs at her side. "These are military dogs?" he asked, voice unsteady. "Yes," Danielle replied calmly. "Trained by me. They won't act unless I say so." Rex took one measured step forward, his eyes steady. Perez turned toward the woman who had made the call, still standing across the street, arms crossed, phone clutched like a badge of honor. "I didn't know who she was," the woman said. "She looked suspicious. Big black truck, dogs. I thought..." "You thought I was breaking into my own house?" Danielle asked, not raising her voice, just locking eyes with her. The woman shrugged. "I didn't recognize you." Danielle tilted her head. "How long have you lived here?" "A few months. I've been here 5 years. I mow that lawn every Saturday morning." "You never once waved." The woman said nothing. Danielle turned back to Perez. "Am I under arrest?" He shifted uncomfortably, looked around at the other officers, now lowering their weapons, looking like they'd wandered into the wrong scene of a movie. "No, ma'am. Obviously there's been a misunderstanding." She didn't speak right away, just knelt beside her dogs. Rex sat. Nova laid her head on her paws, calm, like they knew the drill. One by one, the officers backed away. Perez returned her ID, murmuring something about protocol. "You had to respond," Danielle said. "But you didn't have to treat me like I was robbing a bank. You could have checked the mailbox. It says Rucker, or asked a question, or maybe just said, 'Hello.'" Her voice stayed quiet, but it hit like a brick through glass. Perez had nothing to say. The officers were already returning to their cruisers. And the neighbor? She just turned and walked away. No apology, just silence. Danielle exhaled, not relief, just release. But what she didn't know was that someone had filmed the whole thing. From a porch across the street, Franklin Yates, a quiet retired builder with bad knees and a good eye, had recorded every second. Danielle once shoveled his driveway during a rare freeze, never asked for anything in return, so when he saw her boxed in like a fugitive, he hit record. No commentary, just a raw 74-second clip. Police shouting, Danielle calm. The dogs stepping out. The mood shifting. The video went online that night. Maybe it was Franklin's grandson, maybe a neighbor. Either way, within 24 hours, it had over 500,000 views. Danielle found out through a text from her cousin. Girl, is this you? She clicked the link, watched it once, then again, slower. She studied her posture, how Rex never left her side, how Nova instinctively placed herself between her and the officer. By the fifth replay, her eyes locked on something else. The neighbor's face. Not afraid, not worried, just blank, like she wasn't seeing a person at all. Danielle leaned back on the couch, eyes closed. This wasn't the first time she'd been profiled, but it hit different. It happened at home, her driveway, under flags she had served to protect. Rex sighed and nudged her leg. She looked down at him, reached for her boots. She needed air. Meanwhile, outside, the story had already begun to spread. Franklin's phone rang with old friends calling him brave. Others accused him of staging it. And the neighbor? Her name was Kimberlyn Faulner. She worked part-time at a wellness spa. Her phone was now lighting up too. Not with praise, but with questions. Some not so polite. The comments under the video weren't gentle. She thought she was a hero, one read. This is why people don't trust the police. Another, she called 911 just because a black woman had a truck and 2 dogs. And some were even harsher. Screenshots of the neighbor's social media started circulating. Her name, her job, her quotes about kindness. By Tuesday morning, news vans were 2 streets away. Danielle opened her front door and whispered, Lord. Perez, the officer from the driveway, had filed his report, but the department hadn't been ready for this. Not the video, not the trained dogs, and certainly not the outrage. Internal Affairs opened a review. The police chief issued a carefully worded statement about procedural missteps and community values, but no one, not a soul, came to Danielle in person. The silence said everything. By Wednesday, her street looked like a media zone. Reporters loitered near the curb. Microphones popped up every time she stepped outside. Do you believe this was racially motivated? Were your dogs trained for encounters like this? Will you file a complaint? She didn't answer. Not yet. She walked Rex and Nova like usual, tried to maintain normal, though nothing was. That afternoon, the Modesto Tribune ran a headline. Veteran homeowner confronted by police in her own driveway. Military dogs may have prevented tragedy. She read it twice because it was true and terrifying. She kept replaying it, the fingers twitching near triggers, the tight grips, the yelling, but the dogs didn't flinch, didn't bark, didn't move without permission. People didn't realize what those dogs were capable of. Danielle had trained them herself to detect explosives, to chase fugitives across miles of terrain, to disarm armed suspects. They could leap 6-foot fences, immobilize threats in seconds. But only if she gave one word. She never had to. Their presence alone told the story. As the video spread, messages flooded her inbox. Veterans, dog handlers, strangers, people who saw themselves in that 74-second clip, in her posture, her stillness, her restraint. One message stood out, from Tanya Levins, a former Marine, now a K-9 trainer in San Diego. She wrote, "Your control was extraordinary. Most people would have panicked. Those dogs didn't just protect you, they showed the world exactly who you are. You didn't shout, but they heard you anyway." Danielle read it 3 times, because the truth was, she had been scared, not visibly, but in that deep, quiet way, the kind of fear you swallow because showing it means losing control. Later that evening, someone finally knocked. It wasn't the police, it was her neighbor, Kimberlyn Fallner, the one who called 911. She wore slacks, a tucked-in blouse, and discomfort like perfume. "I came to apologize," she said, before Danielle even spoke. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand." Danielle didn't invite her in. She stood in the doorway, Rex at her side, Nova watching silently from behind. "You didn't know who I was," Danielle repeated, "but you still called and said I was breaking in?" Kimberlyn hesitated. It looked suspicious. "What part? The truck? The dogs? Or me?" she stammered. "I didn't recognize the car. I've had that car since I moved in. I don't usually look at cars." "Exactly." A long pause. "I'm sorry," Kimberlyn said, this time quieter. Danielle gave a single nod. Not forgiveness, not agreement, just a nod. "I hope you tell your friends that," she said. "And next time, think twice before your phone becomes your weapon." Kimberlyn nodded and left. Danielle closed the door and finally sat at her dining table. For the first time in days, she breathed. Not because it was over, but because she was ready. Across town, the mayor was preparing to meet her. Not because she asked, because he had to. Mayor Douglas Rern, late 50s, polished, always ready for a soundbite, requested the meeting to listen and learn. He brought a legal pad, a PR assistant, and a pocket recorder. Danielle didn't dress up. She wore her usual boots, cargo pants, that same Fort Bragg hoodie. Rex and Nova sat behind her, unmoving. The mayor folded his hands. "We deeply regret what happened to you, Ms. Rucker. What occurred doesn't reflect Modesto's values." Danielle didn't flinch. "You say that," she replied, calm as ever. "But it happened in my driveway. And if my dogs hadn't been there, I might not be here either." His assistant shifted. The mayor cleared his throat. "We're reviewing protocols." "There'll be retraining," the mayor said. "Officer Perez will be part of the internal review. And the neighbor, the one who called, she's issued a written apology." "She didn't apologize to me," Danielle cut in. "She apologized to the internet." He hesitated. "I served this country for over a decade," she continued, steady as ever. "Not so someone could pull a weapon on me while I'm unlocking my own garage." He tried to respond. She didn't let him. "You want to talk about training? Start by training your people not to see someone who looks like me, driving something bigger than a compact car, and immediately assume threat." Silence. Danielle leaned back. Rex's ears flicked. Nova yawned. "I don't want a medal," she added. "I don't need my name on a banner. I just want to know I can park in my own driveway without wondering if I'm being watched like a suspect." The mayor nodded. "You have every right to feel that way." "I know," she said. "I'm not asking for permission." No handshake followed, just a quiet click as his assistant shut off the recorder. Meeting over. When Danielle got home, there was an envelope under her door. No return address. Inside, a handwritten note. "Thank you for standing your ground. My daughter saw your video. She asked me if she'd be safe when she grows up looking like you. I didn't have an answer. Now I do." No signature. But that single page meant more to Danielle than any press conference ever could. The neighborhood shifted, slightly. A few neighbors stopped to say hi. Someone left flowers on her porch. A kid on a scooter asked to pet her army dogs. She let him. Rex sniffed politely. Nova barely blinked, dignified as always. Not all changes were welcome. 2 officers from the scene were reassigned. No admission, no denial. As for Kimberlyn Fallner, the neighbor, she deleted her social media and parked 2 blocks away now. She didn't jog by anymore. Danielle didn't celebrate. This wasn't a victory. It was just what happened. And sometimes, that's what stings. Not what they did, but how normal it all felt. Like she was back in uniform, proving herself to people who didn't even know how to pronounce her name. But it wasn't over. Not until she told the story in her own words. Requests came flooding in, from local podcasts to national morning shows. Some wanted to film live. One even asked if her dogs could be part of the interview for visual impact. Danielle turned them all down until her cousin Zora called again. "Danny," she said, "if you don't speak, someone else will, and they'll get it wrong. Tell it your way." Danielle was quiet. "I'm not trying to go viral." "You already did," Zora replied. "Now decide what you're going to do with it." She was right. Danielle chose one, just one. A quiet local series called Front Porch Stories. No lights, no scripts, just a camera, a chair, and a microphone. They filmed outside her home. No glam, no crew. Just Tony, the journalist, and one question. "Can you tell me what happened that day?" Danielle did. She didn't just talk about the guns. She spoke of Kandahar, of the soldiers she lost, of nights training wrecks in the desert, of Nova's first mission, of coming home thinking she could finally exhale. "I gave this country my time, my health, and pieces of my peace," she said. "All I wanted was a patch of grass and a sidewalk for my dogs. And instead, I got profiled in my own driveway." She talked about silence, how the guns lowered only when they saw the vests, not her face. "I had to be standing next to 2 military working dogs just to be heard," she said. "Think about that." The interview spread, even more than the original video. No edits, no drama, just one woman telling her truth like she was talking to a neighbor. And the response? Floods of messages, donations in her name, veterans, parents, police officers who admitted they had things to unlearn. Danielle didn't ask for sympathy. She just asked people to look. A week later, the Modesto Police Department quietly updated their policies. Officers would now confirm ownership before making stops, especially at homes. They called it the Rucker Rule. Danielle didn't smile. She just exhaled, patted Rex, and went on with her day. At the dog park a few days later, a woman pushing a stroller waved. "Thank you for your service," she said. And this time, Danielle nodded back. Danielle nodded politely, but what truly stayed with her didn't happen in a meeting room. It happened by the bananas. A teenager, maybe 17, spotted her in the grocery store. Hoodie on, voice shaky. "You're the lady with the dogs, right?" She nodded. He hesitated. "My mom said you were scary." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "Did she?" "Yeah, but I don't think you are." She smiled, leaned in a little. "Tell your mom I'm only scary before coffee." He laughed, and for a moment, so did she. But deep down, what Danielle wanted wasn't laughter, it was understanding. She hadn't planned to speak at the town forum. The chairs were cold, the coffee bitter, the microphones barely reached chest level. But after the third person called what happened a misunderstanding, something shifted inside her. She stood, people turned. "My name is Danielle Rucker," she said. "I live on Rosewood Drive. I'm a veteran. I served because I believed in something bigger than myself." The room went still. "Last week, I pulled into my driveway after helping family move. I hadn't even turned off my car before guns were pointed at me. Heads dropped. I stayed calm not because I wanted to, but because I had to. People like me don't get to panic. If I'd moved wrong or raised my voice, I might not be here telling you this." No one dared interrupt. I didn't argue. I didn't resist. All I did was exist, and that was enough to scare someone. She glanced toward the crowd. That should bother you. A hush moved across the room. I had 2 highly trained military dogs with me. That means I've been trusted in war zones with life and death, but I still wasn't trusted in my own neighborhood. She paused. This isn't about one woman making a bad call. It's about a system that lets someone feel safe calling the police on a neighbor just because she doesn't recognize her face. It's about officers reacting with weapons instead of questions. A few clapped, then more. I'm not angry, she said softly. I'm tired. Tired of being told I'm the exception when really, I'm just the latest. She stepped away from the mic. No big ending, no applause fishing, just quiet strength. Rex and Nova followed her without a sound. That night, her speech made the rounds online. Not because it was flashy, but because it was real. And sometimes, that's all people are craving. Honesty. A week later, she sat on her porch. No lights, no interviews, just tea in one hand, Nova's head under the other. For the first time in days, she felt something like stillness. Not because things were fixed, but because she'd finally said her truth out loud, and no one could take that back. She didn't want to be a symbol. She didn't want to be the woman with the dogs. She just wanted her peace. And in her own way, she was starting to reclaim it. A few days later, a message came from a friend she hadn't seen since basic training. My daughter saw your video, it read. She asked why anyone would fear a soldier. I didn't have an answer. Until now. Thank you. Danielle read it twice. That was the thing. Sometimes it only takes one moment, a false assumption, a raised voice, a quiet dog, to hold a mirror up to the world. Not everyone likes what they see, but sometimes that reflection is the first step toward change. She never wanted to trend, never wanted headlines, but if her story made one person pause before judging, if it made one officer choose to ask instead of assume, if it helped one teenager walk with more confidence, then maybe it was worth it. Same street, same hedges, same mailbox. Nothing had changed, but she had. And maybe that was enough to shift everything else in time. Because the truth is, she never needed permission to belong. She just needed the world to stop pretending she didn't. And if you've listened this far, hear this. Your story matters. Your presence matters. And when the world finally pauses to listen, make sure it hears.